star is that whenever your powerful EX Pokemon evolves from a regular Stage 1 or a regular Basic, you get to have additional Pokemon make their way into the deck. So we see both of these Gardevoirs having an opportunity to shine. Of course, Calvin, someone who's no stranger to this level of tournament play. He's a top 16 competitor currently. He's made top 8 at regionals this year, including a second place finish all the way back in Peoria, where he did unfortunately lose to Tord Reklev. Over here on the other end, though, we've got Evan, who this is actually going to be his first time playing on one of our feature matches on the stream. We'll see what happens, Ethan. It's a mirror match, so it really is anyone's game.
Anyone's game. A few advantages. Going first, of course, being the first person to attack in a mirror match is a big advantage. Another card I have my eye on is that Cresselia. Of course, the main engine, as you said, not just for draw, but for accelerating, is those Kirlia. So targeting down with Moonglow Reverse, taking knockouts, something definitely to keep your eye out, including the prize cards, both copies of Gardevoir EX in the prize cards for Calvin Connor.
That is definitely not good. Not what Cal wants to see. He can get a pretty quick attack off if he is to start Zacian and get an energy attachment, use that ability, get an extra energy in play. We could start to see that Storm Slash coming through on the second turn of the game and take prize cards. That's going to be his best bet if he looks through the deck and makes note of those Gardevoirs and the prizes.
The main energy acceleration option, unavailable for now. A Roar of the Sword, a great way to at least get some energy into play, but it's again at the cost of putting 2 prize Pokemon into play in the mirror match.
Yes, yep.
Giving up prize cards early, of course, an easy knockout down the line, or not easy, but towards the end of the game, right, when you've got a bunch of energy in your discard pile, something like Storm Slash is a KO option on Gardevoir EX. But until that point, we'll have to see how this match plays out. Swiss round 15, the last round here at Fresno Regional Championships. Evan actually starting that Zacian, not something you want to start in this matchup, of course. Does have 2 retreat costs, so can't pivot into something like that Celebrations Mew. We are going to see concealed cards used first, drawing 2 cards, does find a copy of Ralts. Definitely what you want to get down. Has a few to join in the hand. And that's going to be pretty much it here for Evan on turn number 1.
Yeah, pretty solid turn overall. I think he would have loved to have gotten an energy attachment for turn 2. This Zacian can still get 1 attachment through that Roar of the Sword ability, but you're not going to be able to threaten the turn 2 Storm Slash now unless you're able to find a turn 2 Rare Candy plus Gardevoir EX, which is a lot more to ask for.
It's one of those trade-offs where Evan did have the energy, decided to concealed card it away. In that case, do you still agree with trying to draw more cards with concealed cards, or do you go for the safer play of guaranteeing Storm Slash?
I think so. I agree with the decision to concealed cards here. You really need to get Ralts down. He did already have 1 Ralts in hand, so he had at least 1 guaranteed, but getting that second one down is really strong. And then when you're playing cards in your deck like both of these players having Battle VIP Pass, which Cal has opened up here, if Evan had hit one of those off of the concealed cards, it's the only turn of the game he's able to play it. So it makes a lot of sense to go for the concealed cards. Overall, I definitely agree.
Cal is going to get the bad news very quickly here that both copies of Gardevoir EX.
Yeah, look at his face up there. He's going to make note of this pretty soon. And yeah, getting the bad news, definitely unfortunate. Yep, let's jot that one down on the notepad. Gardevoir, and another Gardevoir as well.
Unavailable for him at this point. Still, great way to start the turn off. Battle VIP Pass, 2 Pokemon to be selected. Did start that Cresselia, so it is an option if he wants to utilize that down the line. Also has the Celebrations Mew, which of course is great to use early on with that Mysterious Tail ability, looking at the top 6 cards of your deck, finding an item card. Battle VIP Pass would be great, Level Ball would be great. Radiant Greninja is also a great grab here. It's one of the harder cards to get out of your deck search-wise, and Battle VIP Pass is great at getting those basics out turn 1 that aren't Level Ball searchable or Fog Crystal searchable.
Yeah, and I think that's why we've seen Cal go for the VIP Pass, getting 2 of these Pokemon that are a little harder to get with those other cards you mentioned. He's got Fog Crystal to find Kirlia and Mew. He's got Level Ball to find, Ralts and Mew. He's got Level Ball to find those cards as well. So has plenty of options, plenty of other ways to get those cards out into play. Greninja, the most difficult one to establish, like you mentioned.
And a smart choice there. Understands if I want to attack, I might not like it, but it's got to be with Zacian. See it coming down already. Concealed cards can be used. Does have another Psychic Energy to commit to this Zacian potentially. And a great draw there. Battle Pass and Ralts. Both those Pokemon can come down into play. Has things like Rare Candy for next turn. Despite these bad prizes, Calvin is getting set up excellently here in game number 1.
And getting the VIP Pass is huge as well because it allows him to save the Level Ball that he currently has in his hand. Now that on the following turn can go grab a Kirlia to get this refinement chain going. Cal's honestly sitting on a pretty good hand if he had access to Gardevoir. He's already got a Rare Candy. He already has Ultra Ball. We're looking like a turn 2 attack. but there's just no Gardevoir showing up for the party. Cal really, you can see it on his face. He can't believe it.
It's a really weird situation. I think a thought sort of crossed my head at one point of like, do you even just go into the next game with both Gardevoir prize? A tie for both these players means they're not safe to make top cut at this point.
Yeah,
sort of right out of that range.
I think Cal can hold off at the moment. Going to get the attachment here, probably going to use Roar of the Sword. If he does go aggressive with the Zacian, he already has Boss's Orders in hand as well, so he can get around Evan's opposing Zacian, so he can guaranteed take a prize. I think it's fine to stick it out for a turn, see if you can maybe snag a Gardevoir off the prizes, and if so, we've got a game.
Smart choice here from Calvin, attaching this energy. That means that there's no way to sort of pivot this Cresselia out of the active besides something like a Penny. So it means that if this is knocked out by something like a Zacian incoming, then you technically open yourself up for Calvin's Zacian to attack. And it's going to be Roar of the Sword, putting this second Psychic Energy on here, ending Calvin's turn. It's a glorified way of saying I'm passing the turn over to you in this case.
Pretty much, but it is a little stronger, right? Getting that extra energy is absolutely massive. And speaking of extra energy, that is something Evan did miss out on the last turn. So getting a turn to attack here would be pretty lucky, honestly, on Evan's side of things. And I don't even see much in the way of making that happen here. It looks like it might be a situation of using this Lumineon, use that excellent Luminous Sign ability, and just dump the hand with a Professor's Research and see if you can get a fresh 7 to work with that has something a little better.
Having Lumineon in this matchup really acts as a liability, of course. There's so many Pokemon that can take knockouts on it. Gives up 2 prize cards, and in a mirror match, every extra advantage you can get in taking more prize cards is big. But like you said, grabbing Professor's Research, there's not too many resources getting discarded in the hand, nothing like Rare Candy. Evan is just playing the 2 copies of Rare Candy. Most lists over here, just playing 2 copies of Rare Candy, sort of valuing getting Curlia out, sometimes taking an extra turn to get Stage 2s out on the 3rd turn like you normally would, not skipping that stage of evolution. And there it is. Research 7 cards. Like you said, Rare Candy, Gardevoir needs to still find a few Psychic Energy to get knockouts as well. Is playing multiple copies of those to get there. And speaking of which, does find those energies and finds the Gardevoir. So still has access to this Concealed Cards ability. Discarding Psychic Energy, drawing 2 cards. Might come down to this refinement to see if Evan can find a Rare Candy.
It's looking like it's going to. There is another Curlia, so worst case scenario, you could see another refinement. I think I would like to see Evan hold off on evolving here just in case you find the Rare Candy on this next refinement. No reason to evolve before using this ability. Doesn't look like he would have hit it anyway, but this is still overall a very solid turn. Evan is using this as a little bit more of a setup opportunity, knows it was unlikely that he was going to get set up get an attack off anyway, so taking the opportunity, just setting up, see the attachment to the active, and once again another Roar of the Sword to end the turn.
Zacian fully powered up next turn, 150 damage right now with the Storm Slash. Can of course boost that up more and more depending on how many Psychic Energy you can put on with attachments, Psychic Embrace, etc., etc. Level ball starting to turn out for Calvin, finding this first Curlia into play. So we're starting the refinement trades both on the back end, but I mean, we keep stressing this over and over again. Not having Gardevoir means that unless there's a penny for Calvin, which it doesn't really even feel great to use that resource. It's not huge in this matchup, but you really need to find supporters to still get your turn going. But this Zacian will be unable to attack, and it's just more time for Evan to not only initiate the prize trade, but continue to develop his board more so because he has those Gardevoir EX available and in the deck.
Refinement coming out now is going to ditch that Drapion V. That's kind of a unique tech, not something we see too terribly often. And Cal was able to find a Professor's Research here, which is overall really solid. Now, there is technically also a way that Cal could pull off an attack this turn. He does play 2 copy of that Gardevoir from Chilling Reign, so with the Rare Candy in his hand and the Ultra Ball, he could fetch out that Shining Arcana and just spin the wheel. Go for the try. See if you can get an energy hit. It is risky. Worst case scenario, though, you do just draw a couple extra cards. I don't think we're going to see that line of play, though, seeing as Cal has chosen to thin an energy out of the deck at this point.
So there's Ultra Ball, getting rid of that energy card and Boss's Orders.
Oh, maybe we will see it.
I feel like if you're Calvin, you just have to go for this play. You know, if you don't grab Gardevoir out of the prizes. The issue still with this play is sort of the reason that I'm a little bit hesitant about this is if you bring this Zacian up, you attack the other Zacian, and then the Zacian knocks out your Zacian, what do you have left on your board? You're stuck with essentially no main attacker. You lose the first 2 prize cards, and you're, like you said, relying off spinning the wheel with Shining Arcana to find these energies. Maybe the angle for Calvin is take a turn off, build the Zacian up more and more, and put yourself in that range for Storm Slash. You're going to need to have 6 energy, but it's doable with a few Shining Arcana, and this first one does not find energy, so that will not be an option here for Calvin.
not an option. Just a research, though, still very solid. Discarding the hand to draw 7 more. Still has a refinement available after hitting one off that Shining Arcana. Did get that evolution. Battle VIP pass in the hand is going to be a pretty easy pitch. And it's going to be, I mean, these Zacians have just been roaring back and forth in this game so far, Ethan. I think we're going to see another end of the turn with Roar of the Sword.
A lot of tension building up between both these Zacian, roaring back and forth, powering up. Who will strike first? Who will take the first knockouts? Potentially control the tempo in this game. Does have access to one more refinement ability, and I mean, Level Ball has been used at this point. Not even playing it to grab something like Manaphy. I believe that was discarded on the first turn.
Yeah, did also have a Battle VIP pass in hand, so I'm not really sure why Cal would discard Level Ball over VIP pass, but you know, I'm not going to question him. He knows what he's doing. He's here at this point. We do see both those Curlias now having been used. Roar of the Sword likely incoming. I don't believe Cal has attached for turn, so could get that attachment to the active so that it becomes a pivot next turn. Could also attach to the Zacian and then Roar of the Sword somewhere else. Of course, that's one of the unique things about this ability is that it can go anywhere. You also could just load up this extra energy onto this Zacian.
So energy attachment for turn. Roar of the Sword puts this at 180 damage now with this Storm Slash. So we'll need to find a way to put 2 more energy on and pivot the Cresselia, and you start to see where it gets a little bit tricky. As you said, is still possible. Could even evolve a second one of these Curlia into another copy of the Shining Arcana.
Oh, nope, that's in the prizes too.
Oh, it's gone as well.
Yeah, it's really bad.
They're not here.
Cal's end. The Cardies are hiding away for sure.
I think for Evan here, something like Boss's Orders to take out the Zacian would be
so
a
good,
big find to shut down all that Calvin has worked on. Concealed cards, refinement being used, can play this Level Ball, grab the 3rd Curlia out of the deck. Let's see if Boss's Orders is available. Evan is playing just the 1 copy, so there's only 1 available in the deck.
Yeah, and no Serena in the deck for either of these. Sorry, Cal does have Serena, but Evan does not. That was kind of one of the innovations we saw from Henry Brand's list last week, is that he chose to play Serena in the list, not something that's always been a staple. Evan is not choosing to play that card, but Cal has it in his list.
Does find the Gardevoir EX, has a few copies of those in the hand. 1 more refinement ability, can use this Fog Crystal. Like to see that get played. Thin the Psychic Energy out of the deck. You know what you're looking for here at Boss's Orders. It would be an excellent find. But even at minimum, taking the first prize cards on Cresselia, not a bad way to have this essentially first knockout go for Evan in this position. And it is going to be the Psychic Energy. Big refinement coming up here.
In doing the math as well, Cal does not have a way to knock out this Zacian next turn unless he gets lucky and gets a hit on Shining Arcana. Theoretically, if Cal had something like Choice Belt, another card that we saw Henry Brand include in his list that was not something that was standard beforehand, then Cal would be able to just go attach plus Choice Belt. Now he needs to attach plus Shining Arcana next turn if he wants to get to doing enough damage to knock out the 220 HP Zacian.
Does not find Boss's Orders off of the final Shining, or rather off the final refinement. Interesting choice to evolve this Gardevoir EX. It's really not providing any value in terms of using Psychic Embrace, and all you're doing is just shutting off, but actually had the Boss's Orders. That's a huge find.
Massive.
Didn't see it there. Can bring up this Zacian, remove all the energy on the board, take the first prize cards, and there's no way for Calvin to respond on the following turn.
Yeah, this is tough. I don't know if there's much of a comeback here for Cal. He's going to stick it out here for a moment. Maybe he gets really lucky with some Shining Arcana hits, but, I mean, even if you hit 2, you attach for turn, you're not dealing enough damage to knock out Zacian here. And, yeah, what do you know? You only hit 2 item cards, no energy.
I think you back it up. I think you go to the next game. If you play this game out too long, even 37 minutes to finish 2 games in this mirror seems so difficult. These are decks that take long turns. They draw a lot of cards. They want to meticulously set damage up to take knockouts. And Calvin's going to stick to it. Maybe sees an out that we don't. Playing Ultra Ball, of course, Roxanne can always get you back in the game, always give you a second chance, but it's difficult when you're not putting any pressure on this turn. Your opponent's going to go to 3 prizes next turn. They're also going to knock out this Shining Arcana Gardevoir next turn, and what more can you do, really? Yeah,
Cal's only option is really going to be Miriam to get this Gardevoir back. That's all he has access to with 3 Gardevoir in the prizes. So it's really, really tough. He doesn't even have the second Zacian to put down onto the bench in order to start accelerating to, try to get that powered up because he drew it off the Shining Arcana last turn and then researched it away.
Not a lot to do here for Calvin. We will see the other alts get benched, so all 4 are there, but of course cannot evolve all the way up into Gardevoir EX. Fog Crystal in hand, I mean, what do? Do you just start powering up your bench Kirlia in preparation of this getting knocked out to Miriam it back? But I mean, the Zacian's still out of range. 3 energy Brainwave is only doing 150 damage.
Yeah.
You're still short 20 damage, or rather, you're still short 30 damage at that. So you need to find 4 energy cards to take this knockout onto Zacian.
Yeah, Refinement will ditch one more Mew. Really looking tough here for Cal. I don't know what his win con is. I'm trying to think through it in my head. Maybe he gets lucky with a boss stall play. His opponent makes a mistake. That's kind of the hope you're having at this point, but that is so unlikely, especially at this level when we're in round 15 of Swiss. Both of these players having over 10 wins in this tournament with a few ties as well, so it's pretty unlikely to see that happen, and it looks like it is back over to Evan's turn, who top decks a pretty strong card in that Forest Seal Stone.
Refinements can still be used. Interesting choice, getting rid of the Choice Belt. It's not too relevant in this matchup. You're usually getting knocked out back regardless, so that extra 30 damage doesn't apply on something like Gardevoir EX, which is one of the few 2-prize Pokemon you can knock out. Second one, discarding Rare Candy, and it's all cake on top here, essentially, for Evan. It's running away with this game. Could honestly have just drawn, attacked, and done nothing else and would have still been in a completely fine position. If anything, is just thinning out these bad cards, which can't be drawn later on in the game. There it is. Storm Slash, knockout again. Evan taking another prize card, and Calvin is not even have a chance to knock this Pokemon out. I guess if you Shining Arcana, find 2 energy cards, attach for turn, but you also need to find the Miriam this turn to bring it. Or I guess there's Clara in hand, so.
Okay, yeah, it does play the Clara. Interesting, yep.
Yeah, Clara instead of Miriam was a discussion I saw a little bit online. When you're playing 11 Psychic Energy, it's nice to actually get back the energy cards sometimes to have that as an option.
At this point, though, Cal doesn't care about getting the energy, just cares about the Shining Arcana, and hits no energy cards.
I think we're going to back it up.
Yeah.
Nope.
Well, okay, I thought he was reaching over for the prizes. Cal is sticking. I mean, got to give some props, being resilient here, trying to find a path. But at some point, you just have to recognize that there's no realistic path for you to come back in a game.
I wonder if on Evan's side, you're thinking to yourself, man, is my opponent just so unlucky? Have they just, like, not found their Gardevoir EX yet at this point?
Yeah, like, Evan doesn't have the knowledge that Cal has prized so many Gardevoir, but you get to a point in a game and you start to kind of assume. I mean, Cal's drawn a ton of cards. We've seen some Ultra Balls be played. If he wanted to get Gardevoir in play, it surely would have happened. So Evan probably is assuming the worst at this point.
So we'll still be Psychic Energy. Both these players are playing lots of Psychic Energy, but some of them are mismatching arts. I'm looking over on Evan's side, and there's the Play Pokemon Energy, but one of them has a different logo at the bottom. But and Calvin's playing the new the Scarlet and Violet Energy in different ones.
Hey,
Come
listen,
on, guys.
You got to roll with what you got, man.
You gotta play the same energy cards, though. It's just, do you rock up with different arts when you play?
I usually play the same energy cards unless I'm playing GLC. If I use GLC, I like to use different basic energy because it kind of like fits the aesthetic of GLC, I feel like. But yeah, if I'm playing in a standard tournament, we're matching energies.
Right on. With you on that one there. It is going to be Shining Arcana, not finding anything. These refinement abilities used. I mean, what do you memory skip? Turn was passed back over to Evan, so he's going to be going down to essentially 2 prize cards here, I believe, right? Didn't knock out the, or we're still on his turn, are we? I kind of lost it a little bit in pace.
Yeah, we're on Evan's turn. I think he should have just 3 prizes left because he knocked out Zacian, knocked out the Gardevoir last turn, so should just be at 3 prizes left.
Regardless, running away with this game, plenty of tempo. It is going to be the Ultra Ball discarded off of the Refinement. And again, what do? Your opponent's at 2 prize cards now. Even if you find a way to take, even if Calvin got the maximum amount of prize cards back and forth for the next couple of turns, there's nothing he can do to get out of this situation.
Yeah, really got to question the game plan here at this point for Cal. Maybe he's just, well, okay, here's something we haven't considered yet, Ethan, that I think is something worth noting. Cal is at 33 match points coming into this round. Evan is at 32. Evan needs to get a win in this round to make it into cut. Cal could come away with a tie, right? Cal could get to a tie, 34 match points, and if he feels like his resistance is strong enough, that's all he needs. So that is probably why we're seeing Cal stick this out. He's playing the game out even though he knows he can't win. I think he is totally aware that he doesn't win ever in this position, but he is letting some time come off the clock. He's not doing anything against the rules. He's not slow playing. He's not stalling. He's playing cards as they come to him. He knows he can't win, but he's just sticking it out and going to let some more time come off the clock so that in a situation that we get to a game 3 and there's not enough time to finish, he comes away with 1 match point.
It's a bold strategy. We'll see if it pays off here for Calvin at this point. Does have Palpad. So can make back some more supporter cards. At this point, kill some time off the clock. It is going to be Evan taking this last knockout the next turn. I mean, yep, sure, shuffle these back in. I guess you can memory skip away the Zacian V, say, know what, one time for you, you forgot how to use Storm Slash for a turn, but there are plenty of other Pokemon. Lumineon gets played down, and I mean, might as well go for it, right? Serena, bring up the Lumineon V, see if there's potential. If anything, you get more information, right? If your opponent only has like a penny to play a card to pick this up out of the active, it's more information for Calvin going into these next potentially 2 games of this series.
We are pretty low on deck size for both of these players, though Cal, I think, has less cards. It looks like he's only got 2 cards available, whereas Evan has 4 cards available in the deck. We're going to see him draw for turn, attach, retreat, and sure enough, that is game number 1. Going to Evan here on the win inning, going up 1-0 in this match. And Cal showing off, yep, this is what I was working with.
You see Evan's reaction, pretty standard at that point. Don't get to play the game. That's usually how this series goes. Hopefully we'll see a little bit more of an indicative match on how this mirror match plays back and forth. We saw how important Zacian was early on in the turns, powering up Pokemon with Roar of the Sword, getting things going, getting set up. Is there anything you'd like to keep your eye on going to this match? We saw sort of a little taste on how these decks set up, but in terms of combat back and forth, not much.
Step 1, don't prize so many Gardevoir. That's step 1 here for Cal. And then from there, I mean, we saw the consistency of this deck really on both sides of the field. Both players were able to get set up pretty consistently on that second, third turn of the game. Evan did miss out on the turn 2 Rare Candy into Gardevoir, but was still very fine with the position. And if a different situation had called for it, right, he could have Storm Slashed there on the second turn of the game, if he'd gotten that attachment. So overall, very strong showing from both of these players, and that's just the strength of this Gardevoir deck. Once it gets set up and rolling, it is one of the most powerful forces in the entire standard format, and it only gets better as we move forward into Paldea Evolved.
I'm excited to see how this deck continues to evolve with the new expansions that's coming out. Not too slick, but, I've had better, I've had worse, so we'll take it. Yeah, plenty of tools to talk about. We sort of touched about it a little bit yesterday. I'm excited to see, especially with Japan Championships finishing up yesterday, last night, essentially, here in the U.S. Went pretty late. I was
you stay up and watch it?
I didn't watch the final match, but I think we got up to like top 8 or top 4.
Nice.
And Gardevoir still performing well. Didn't win the event, but still doing extremely well. And there's tools like Iono and Reversal Energy, very, very solid. But we're here in the present now. We're here on this match. Cal, I'm sure will be going first. I'm sure we'll be starting things off. See how he can set up without a supporter card. Hopefully the prizes are a little bit better in his end. Did prize a Ralts and
double Curly.
Are we going to see 6 Pokemon? 6 Pokemon. The prizes. It is a back and forth Pokemon hideout here in the prize cards for these players.
Oh yeah, that's not ideal. It's not game losing like I think you could argue Cal's opening hand was in the last game, or prize cards I should say were in the last game, but that is tough. 2 Refinement Curlia, a Zacian as well in there, one of those Gardevoir, a Ralts, a Mew, that is really tough to navigate from Evan.
See how he can navigate through this. Cal starting the turn off with a Fog Crystal, does have a few searching cards in hand, another one and a Level Ball. I think this is a choice here for Calvin. Do you go into something like Mew? Do you risk having 1 less Ralts potentially down on your board here at the essential chance of finding Battle Pass? What do you do in this situation?
Yeah, I really do like going for Mew, and I think that's what we've seen most consistently from a lot of Gardevoir players. Cal is sitting on a solid hand, though, has Rare Candy and Ultra Ball in the hand, but also has a Level Ball in addition to this Fog Crystal. So I expect either Level Ball or Fog Crystal to get Mew, and the other one to get Ralts here in this spot. Try to get both of those Pokemon set up and ready to go.
First one being played, does find Mew. I feel like if you're going to use this, you might as well play the other Fog Crystal from your hand. Of course,
the Level Ball.
It's 1 less, or Fog Crystal, Level Ball, 1 way to search it out.
Oh, he has both. Okay, yeah.
So we will see the Fog Crystal get played. That is an interesting decision. You said, do you sort of risk it and find 1 more Ralts? I feel like for the choice of making that big of a decision without information off of something like Mysterious Tail, it may actually be better to just hold the level ball in hand. That way you see what you get off Mysterious Tail, and then you make a choice of, well, if I find Battle Pass, of course, I'm going to want to hold level ball for Kirlia.
Yeah,
if not,
I agree.
Maybe you have to play a little bit more risky.
And going into the Mew here is really strong as well because you guarantee yourself 2 turns of using it in this matchup. You're not playing up against Lost Box, something that's going to get the Cramorant up and running and take a knockout on it in 1 turn. You're going to get 2 turns of Mysterious Tail. So this turn you can use it to find Battle VIP Pass, and next turn something like Rare Candy. If Cal, of course, it wasn't already sitting on 1.
Big 6 cards here, looking for Battle VIP Pass, and they are not there. You can still grab the Rare Candy, take it out of the deck. At least you don't redraw into it, or maybe you don't redraw into it. If you do grab this Rare Candy, you kind of pose the risk that your Ultra Ball top deck is something sort of unthinnable from your hand. It's just like something you really don't want to discard.
Like another Ralts or something like that.
I guess at the same time, though, by grabbing it here, it's pretty much guarantees that you discard the Drapion, one of these Rare Candy, and then you have the other one to play to evolve next turn.
Exactly, and I think this is overall fine from Cal. Pretty much as the Gardevoir deck, you expect to Rare Candy once per game, right? You play 2, you're going to use 1, and the other ones are going to go to Kirlias and eventually evolve up into Gardevoir all the way. So I think it's totally fine to get one out of the deck right here. Like you mentioned, he might top deck something he wants to put into play. You're going to be fine Ultra Balling away one of those 2 Rare Candy if you're only playing 1.
Battle VIP Pass, excellent start for Evan. Besides that, this hand is going to be a pretty tricky decision. Does have Professor's Research in hand, but we'll quickly discover that 2 of those Ralts are hiding out in the prize cards, and another one is in the hand for Evan. So it may also be another angle of utilizing the Mew, but never mind, Mew's also prized. Everything feels like it's unavailable for Evan in this game. The script has completely flipped here in Game 2, and Evan is the one needing to reposition to try and figure out how he's going to navigate through Game 2.
Yeah, Evan, I think he did prize just 1 Ralt. It's 2 Kirlias sitting there in the prizes. So
yeah.
Still has, the thing about prizing so many Pokemon is this deck plays so many. He still has enough options. He can get the other Zacian out. He can get the Radiant Greninja out this turn. That's a way to kind of supplement your draw when you've got 2 Kirlia in the prize cards. So we'll see what he wants to establish moving forward. Zacian and Ralts being the first 2 grabs. Looks like a few energy. Oh, and another Kirlia is actually currently in the hand. So that becomes a question.
Yeah.
Do you want to research this hand if you prize 2 Kirlia? And I'm not sure how thoroughly Evan checked his deck off this first Battle VIP Pass.
That's the question. Evan is only playing the 2 copies of Rare Candy, so there is a situation where maybe you get lucky and find a way to sort of find your double Rare Candy, get a bunch of Ralts down to play, and it is going to be Evan going on the aggressive, attaching to the Zacian, playing Professor's Research, 7 fresh new cards off the top of the deck, looking for some more of these set-up Pokemon. Things like Ralts, things like Greninja. Does find a few options. There is a Fog Crystal to get 1 out and a Level Ball to find the Kirlia next turn, but not much else besides that.
And it is just going to be that 1 Kirlia found the next turn. I think the one thing Evan would have loved to have seen that he wasn't able to was a Greninja. And I think there could be an argument for off of that very first VIP pass, instead of getting this Ralts, maybe Evan should have gotten Greninja down. Because like you mentioned in game number 1, Greninja is the hardest Pokemon to find and get into play in this deck. Using VIP pass to get the Greninja and then playing Research, you've got so many more Ralts in the deck. You've got Level Balls, you've got Fog Crystals, so many more ways to get one in play. Evan didn't choose to go that route, though. Did still get the attachment to Zacian, did get that Roar of the Sword off, is threatening the turn to attack at least.
Top deck for turn for Cal is that Luminion, so it will be the choice to be discarded off of Ultra Ball. And Gardevoir EX is here to play this time for Calvin. Finding it, Rare Candy, skipping the stage of evolution. It is a card we haven't seen in a while. I'm more than happy to see it back, as the format has been defined by V-Star and V-Max Pokemon. But with the return of Pokemon EX, Stage 2s have found the limelight again.
Yep, Rare Candy, a card that's been around in the game for 20 years at this point, I think. It's changed a little bit over the years. The card text has gotten a little different, but is still extremely powerful. Being able to skip a stage of evolution and get a turn 2 EX, really, really powerful. And that's exactly what we're going to see play out right now.
Professor's Research does already have the Gardevoir established. There's a few attackers to utilize. We talked about the Cresselia. Would this be an opportune time to use it if available?
Definitely. I think Cresselia would be solid. It is a lot to get, though, because you would need a lot of Psychic Energy in the discard pile in order to damage your field with the Gardevoir. And, because those Ralts all have 70 hit points, right? So you would need quite a bit to make that happen. I do think Cal would like to start taking prize cards here, so even if it is with the Zacian, it is a little risky with your opponent holding down a Zacian on their side already with 2 energy cards. And that might be what Cal is thinking through. Is that potentially worth it?
So if you do the math, if there's no Gardevoir on Evan's side next turn, an attachment for turn puts that at 150 damage for Storm Slash. So you can safely use 3 Psychic Embrace abilities on a Zacian and be okay, since you'd put yourself to 60 damage, which means you would be 10 short of being knocked out. However, if there's something like a Choice Spell, then that messes the math up. So a few things Calvin's got to keep in mind, but it is going to be Fog Crystal for now, finding Ralts out of the deck, getting a turn essentially delayed in terms of getting Curlias out and refining, and we see this deck sort of struggles to do as you mentioned, get energy in the discard pile when refinement is not an option on the table.
It's looking like this is going to be more of a setup turn for Cal, which I also like as well. You don't really want to put your Zacian in harm's way unnecessarily, and if Mew goes down, it's done its job at this point. You'll have used its ability to set up 2 turns in a row. Your opponent can take that prize, and then you can be the one to take the first 2 prize KO potentially.
Mysterious Tail finally being used after this research. Does find Level Ball. So this could be played now to grab another Ralt and put that into play. I feel like that's a pretty clear choice here for Callum. It is going to be the option. Shuffling up, finding the Ralts. And like you said, could just be a turn of setting up, saying, listen, my board is more developed. You've got that 2 prize Zacian on the bench. Let me try to take care of that next turn. For now, I'm going to take a seat back, relax, and try to just get these Curlias established, get these energy in the discard pile, put some pressure on the following turn.
Yeah, that level ball that Cal just popped in his hand should go to the discard pile, so we'll get that caught here really soon. He just kind of accidentally, I think, put it back in the hand after playing it to get that Ralts. Yeah, he realizes right away. He's like, I should not have this here. But yeah, I think this is going to be more of a setup turn for Cal, which I agree with. No reason to try to extend and make something happen. And might even see him go for the retreat into the Manaphy. That's definitely way less valuable than this Mew is potentially later in the game. So we could see him attach retreat or even Psychic Embrace to the active and retreat it. I think that is the line he's going for, which I think seems solid.
So there is this first Psychic Embrace ability being put onto the Mew. Allow it to pivot out and retreat. Has still not committed the attachment for turn, so if he wants to attack with a Gardevoir, he could do that.
I wonder if he's debating attacking with the Mew. Does 30 damage, lay a little damage in play, make it harder for this Ralts to eventually become a Gardevoir and eventually start attacking. You know, that's less damage that could be put on it with Psychic Embrace later, so every little bit of damage actually does add up.
I think
might seem a little silly, but I mean, there is a reasonable play to do that.
I think the risk here for Cal that he's just thinking about is how likely is it that my opponent with only 2 Ralts in play has the turn 2 Candy Gardevoir. I can go with something like the Zacian or like the Cresselia.
Yeah, could even go for Lunar Blast here, which might be the line that he's going for. There's not enough energies for him to get a good Moon Glow reverse off onto one of the Ralts on the bench, so just stacking 3 energy up on this Pokemon, going for Lunar Blast. You still take the first prize card, but you're doing it without putting a 2 prize Pokemon in harm's way. I think this is ultimately the best middle ground and overall correct play for Cal to make.
Smart play indeed. Mew will retreat out of the active thanks to that Psychic Embrace ability. And let's see if you're right. No, actually, I believe there's there's still 3 energy there. So instead,
because he put the damage on the Mew to retreat it as well. Yep, that'll work.
So that will put a total of 80 damage on the board. And there it is, Moonglow Reverse, healing all the damage, essentially getting 4 energy into play for free, knocking out the benched Ralts. This is a smart play to not knock the active out, because just in case Evan wanted to attack with the Zacian, it now forces a Rare Candy Gardevoir, because you can't commit your attachment to the Zacian for turn and pivot this Ralts out of the active spot.
So we know Evan only has 1 Curlia available, and he's already moved the one in his discard pile up to the top of the discard. And I think that's because he has Miriam in his hand. So that might be his option to try to get another one of these Pokemon back. For now, though, Level Ball getting out this other Curlia. We're going to start to see that refinement chain coming through and see if he can find some more pieces to move forward in this turn.
Going to be a big couple of cards off the Miriam, off of the refinement. Needs to really find the Rare Candy Gardevoir. Otherwise, you kind of let this Cresselia slowly throughout the game, as long as Calvin can continue to discard Psychic Energy, target down the bench Curlia, and make it a feel that going after that, the weakest link, the card that Evan has less available since 2 are in the prize cards, could be a winning strategy. First refinement used, discarding Manaphy, not a card that will see any play in this matchup. drawing 2. And it's really just a matter of what supporter do you play for Evan. Usually in these early turns, something like Professor's Research, super strong to just try and dig through and find something like the Rare Candy and Gardevoir. But with this hand, I think it's just going to be Miriam shuffling back in the 1-1 line, Curlia and Ralts into the deck. 3 cards. Chip, these need to be an incredible 3 cards for Evan to keep pace right now in this matchup.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see that happen. It's pretty unlikely to see exactly Rare Candy Gardevoir drawn here off the 3 cards from the Miriam. I think at minimum what Evan is hoping for is just to get another Ralts or 2 in play. With 1 being prized, he really only has the option to get just 1 more down. So hoping for a way to find that at least. He does get Ultra Ball, so that will work.
Ultra Ball an option. Does also have the Cresselia of his own in hand. So that can be benched into play. I think the choice here is sort of what Pokemon do you leave in the active, and I think if you're going to retreat here, you could have even just used something like the Teleportation Burst and put a little bit of damage in play. I mean,
you might not want to, though.
Yeah, I was going to say the downside is on one end it means that something like the Lunar Blast does 10 less damage to knock out, right? So you do perfect math, but if your opponent's just going to want to utilize Moonglow Reverse next turn, you're kind of adding an extra 10 damage in, and since the Ralts are on odd numbers of HP, it's okay to just have 10 and then 3 Pokemon on the bench with 60 damage total on them.
And Evan here off this Ultra Ball, instead of getting another Ralts down, does just grab another Curlia. I like this as well. Go for refinement, get through the deck a little bit more, and also give these Pokemon maybe just a little more HP. The difference between 70 and 80 is not too big and doesn't really matter too much for the Moonglow Reverse. And I think that this is why we saw Evan go for the retreat as opposed to going for the Teleportation Burst, right?
Roar of the Sword to end the turn off. Sure, this will go onto the Zacian to make sure next turn we'll be dealing 150 damage with Storm Slash, and Cal just kicking things off right away, understands, look, we're down a lot of time. We've kind of been going back and forth. Prize cards need to be taken as Refinement Chain begins. First Refinement, discarding Battle Pass. Does have another one to potentially discard, but I think Cal is sort of in discard mode to get rid of these Psychic Energies.
Yeah, Cal's hand is actually not very good. He doesn't have any strong supporters to play. It looks like there's a Boss's Orders, but he doesn't have any way to draw cards at the moment. He's got Forest Sealstone in hand, but there's no V Pokemon to attach it to. You could put it onto the Gardevoir EX, but it does not get access to that Star Alchemy V-Star power.
Can still evolve this bench Ralts into another Curlia, so that is still a potential option. We are actually going to see the retreat, so listen, the support Pokemon in the deck, Gardevoir EX going on the offensive now.
Yeah.
Attachment for turn.
And the boss.
Psychic Embrace and going after these Curlia. Calvin, smelling blood in the water, taking a knockout here. Miracle Force, 190 damage. Ahead 2 prize cards, and more importantly on Evan's side, not a lot going on. Limited to just 1 refinement this turn, and not a lot of energy in the discard pile. I don't even think this Zacian V has the potential to knock out this Gardevoir. With 290 damage, you need to have 8 energy on to be able to take this knockout, and it just doesn't seem very likely that way.
Yeah, it's pretty tough to make that happen, and I think that's why we saw Cal even checking Evan's discard pile, seeing what exactly was available, how many energy are down at this point. It is possible, though. Evan definitely could find a way to get a few more energy cards in the discard pile and get this one-hit knockout on Gardevoir, and that would almost be a huge momentum swing in this game. It would tie the game up. It would get rid of Cal's Gardevoir EX and really force him to find something else to work with next turn, especially with 2 rare candies already being down. We'll see if Evan can make that happen, though. It is a lot to ask for.
Big 2 cards off this refinement. Getting rid of Shining Arcana. What are the 2 cards? It's Ultra Ball. So if Lumineon is still in the deck, that could grab Professor's Research. Gardevoir EX is put into play. Let's see how many Psychic Energy. I think there's only 2 in the discard pile. Can attach a 3rd one potentially from the hand. That puts it at 6. Would need 2 more. I mean, you can continue to dig with something like Lumineon, Luminous Sign, Professor's Research, but it's just, again, putting these 2 prize liable Pokemon in play seems risky. Evan instead bossing up this Curlia.
This is a good play.
Leaving it only to, the Zacian can now only be knocked out in a 1 hit by something like a Choice Belt on the Gardevoir EX, which Calvin is not playing, or something like the Zacian V, which can be return KO'd by anything on Evan's side.
Exactly. So this is a really smart play from Evan. Found a really good line, take this knockout, It's more of like a board position line, even though you're not tying up the game as far as prize cards go. If you were to really dig and knock out this Gardevoir, you're not putting that Lumineon in play unnecessarily, and you know that it's really difficult for Cal to respond to this active Zacian V.
It will be level ball off of this Mysterious Tail, and that can just be played to grab another Kirlia. And this is the choice for Calvin. Do you try and go for another angle this turn, like Boss's Orders, to target down one of these one-prize Pokemon like Cresselia on the bench, if that's possible? Or are you looking to start this back-and-forth chain? It feels like once somebody commits to this one-hit chain with one of these Pokemon like Zacian damaging yourself up to knock out, it kind of can just get out of hand very quickly, scaled back and forth, exchanging blows.
I think Cal would be pretty fine to initiate that trade at this point in the game. He's up one prize, so if he's the one initiating, he's in the driver's seat. The problem is his hand is still not the strongest, and he does have 3 energy cards currently locked up on this Gardevoir EX on the bench, which could make it a little more difficult for the Zacian to come through and get a KO. I think there is just one other energy card in the discard pile right now, it looks like.
We'll play this Pal Pad, bringing Boss's Orders back. That could be a great card to refine off this refinement, but there's still a fair amount of cards in the deck. Of course, can't play something like the Serena to target down Pokemon. That's sort of why we've seen the card fall out of favor. It feels like a set ago when we were in Silver Tempest, people loved playing this card because there were no EX Pokemon. Any Pokemon that gave up multiple prize cards could be targeted and gusted down. But with EX Pokemon slowly making their way into the format, the card has fallen out of favor. Not going to do Calvin much favors, but still has the boss, still putting it back in. Does have Battle VIP Pass to put away. Also holding on to that Forest Seal Stone in hand. And let's see, nothing really great there. And it's just going to be pretty much deciding, can he still pivot this Mew out? Do you even attack into the Zacian and damage it? I feel like at least you're putting on some sort of pressure, but you're also bringing up the Pokemon you want to be knocked out the least into the active spot.
Well, if you do hit this Zacian with the Gardevoir, it goes down to just 30 HP remaining, which means it can't be loaded up with the Psychic Embrace in order to reach for a knockout on your own Gardevoir. So could be decent if there's a way to get enough damage in play here. Oh man, is it just going to be we're just going to be moving 60 damage onto something, maybe onto the opposing Gardevoir, make that easier to KO later?
I'm trying to see if you
Moonglow reverse maybe onto the active.
Yeah, I don't think if you put it on Zacian,
it makes it so Gardevoir can KO it, right?
Changes anything.
If you do it onto the Gardevoir EX, that means you can knock it out later with Zacian V.
That's true. It's a little bit easier down the line. I was thinking if there's ever a world where you put it on the opposing Zacian so it can't Psychic Embrace enough times to knock out your Gardevoir, but I don't think the math necessarily works that way. I think you could still use Psychic Embrace, 6 times to still get there, seven times, and that's going to be enough energy. There's already 4 on this.
Ultra Ball on Evan's end, can discard 2 cards. Try to find something else to work with. Getting rid of a Psychic Energy means you can bring it back later.
Maybe
does
this is
have
the
a
time.
Zacian in hand, I think.
This could be Lumineon time, potentially, if you have enough energy cards to go after Gardevoir EX. But, I mean, remember, that Cresselia is still in play. Your opponent just gave you damage to spread it on there. Cresselia gifted damage so that Cresselia could essentially say, you know what, I don't want your present. I don't want your damage. I'm sending it back.
I think what Evan's going to do here is we're going to see the Psychic Embrace get extra damage in play, and we'll see him take a note from Cal's strategy book and go for that Moonglow reverse, and that will actually be able to target down the Kirlia on the bench, and it also will get rid of some of this damage on the Gardevoir EX that he's tried to build up, right? That will make it easier to KO later on in the game. Now, if you remove 2 of those damage counters, it still has a lot more HP remaining. We are seeing that Lumineon come down, though, Ethan.
And it is going to be for the Miriam. So putting this Pokemon in play, putting the liability down, but valuing again, trying to establish another one of these Gardevoir lines. It's important to make sure that you at least have a Ralts down into play, because if this Gardevoir gets knocked out, your Psychic Embrace would be shut off if you can't get another one into play.
We see Cal's counting those energy cards in Evan's discard pile. Quite a few, so Moonglow Reverse going to be coming through here almost definitely, taking a prize, and that's going to keep this game tied up. Calvin, even though he had a little bit stronger of a start, seems to have stalled out a little bit, has not taken a prize card in the last turn, and so that will allow Evan to get a little bit farther back into this game.
What a great draw there. Finds the Ralts that was put back into the deck with the Miriam, as well as Level Ball for next turn to evolve that up into a Kirlia. So Evan's got some things to work with. Psychic Embrace to put 2 damage counters on this Cresselia. I think we'll see 2 damage counters put onto the Zacian that already has some energy, and I don't hate putting energy onto this Ralts that you just put into play. It means down the line, if it evolves into the Shining Arcana Gardevoir, if you've got 3 energy on there, it means that you can knock out a Gardevoir EX if you use Psychic Embrace 6 times and attach. And there it is, Moonglow Reverse, knocking out Kirlia, which I think is the correct target you want to go after. And Calvin limited now to just a single Refinement ability.
Yes.
And can't even use the Mew because this Cresselia is stuck in the active spot.
Refinement ditching that Forest Sealstone. Normally such a powerful card, but Cal does not have a Pokemon V in play just yet. He is able to find Serena, and that actually is pretty big, as now Serena could bring up that Lumineon that Evan just played last turn, and Gardevoir can take a one-hit knockout there, take 2 prizes, send Cal down to just 2 remaining, and then he can try to close out the game by knocking out one of these Zacian from Evan's end.
It's a risk for sure. You put yourself in Roxanne range, though, so that means that you've got to really feel confident in finding that. But even in the end of Gardevoir,
you got to take prizes at some point, Ethan, you know?
I feel like it's still fine because if you attack with Gardevoir EX, the only way it's getting knocked out is if your opponent puts a bunch of damage on their board with what? I mean, the only realistic option is this Zacian, and from there, that means if another Gardevoir EX is found, power it up, use Miracle Force, knock out this 2-prize Pokemon, and that will be all Calvin needs to win this game. So he is going to go for this play. Serena bringing up this Lumineon V into the active spot, Miracle Force, 190 damage, will be going down to 2 prize cards, and we're having an interesting game here. We're seeing really, truly how this mirror can play out.
This has really become a really interesting game, number 2. So much back and forth, so much more Cresselia than I would have anticipated. Love to see these players being so strategic, and you can see why they've gotten to this point in the tournament. Only 1 win separating them from a berth into Top Cut. Cal now down to just 2 prizes remaining. Evan having to find a way to piece together somehow, some way to get through the 310 hit points of this active Gardevoir EX.
Cresselia will come up, so that can pivot at some point. Let's see if we can get a little bit of a peek into the deck. What cards are still available? Level Ball can grab the Kirlia out of the deck. I feel like it's just a sentence to losing if you just go all in and attack with this Zacian into the Gardevoir. I mean, your opponent's going to have access to Mysterious Tail. They're going to have access to Kirlia. They haven't even benched their Greninja yet, so they can still bench Greninja and use concealed cards.
Yeah.
It just feels too risky to go all in on this play. Do you maybe try and use Moonglow Reverse again, knock out this Kirlia, and then try to go for that play? I mean,
yeah, maybe so.
I think that might honestly be the better chance. I mean, you could have brought this Kirlia up into the active, put damage counters on it, retreated, go for this knockout, and put yourself in a play where you force Calvin onto a clock for next turn to take this knockout. But at the same time, you also allow Calvin to keep this hand size. It's really a back and forth debate at this point.
There also does become a time where you get too many energy cards spread out in play, right? That's how you have to activate your Moonglow Reverse, is by attaching energy from your discard pile with Psychic Embrace. If your energy gets spread too thin, you're not going to be able to threaten a big KO from Zacian, and Cal can potentially abuse that knowledge if Evan does spread those energies a little bit too wide. This is a great start, though. That Roxanne is going to limit the hand size of Cal, putting him down to just 2 cards. Here's what I think Evan's potential best play is this turn. If he can find a way to get something in the active to hit into this Gardevoir, maybe even take that 1-hit knockout, and also replace this Temple of Sinnoh with a collapsed stadium, that'll limit Cal's bench, and that'll mean Cal either has to find his own Temple of Sinnoh to replace it in order to get Greninja in play and Zacian. If you can knock out this Gardevoir and leave Cal with just 2 cards and just 1 refinement, this is such a strong position potentially for Evan. Let's see what he does.
Big cards for both players. Remember, Evan only has 2 Psychic Energy in the discard pile. Zacian needs to have 9 to knock out this Gardevoir, since there's no damage counters on it at all. Usually we see at least 2 damage counters by using 1 Psychic Embrace to power it up, and this is what it's going to come down to. 2 cards here for Calvin. That's what I got my eye on. Evan's still drawing up to 6, but still not finding those Psychic Energy. I mean, I don't think there's a world where you ever attack with this Kirlia, so at least by bringing it into the active spot, you give yourself a few more options. Because even a play like Roxanne plus Moonglow Reverse to knock Kirlia out means that there's a very realistic situation where Calvin just says,
all he can do is attack with Gardevoir.
I'll attack you, and then you go for the hit, and then you shut Psychic Embrace off for the following turn.
Sure. Plenty of options, lots to consider, and not many cards remaining. Oh, sorry, that was his hand. Okay, does have plenty of cards remaining still in the deck. Looks like Level Ball will just thin out that Ralts, maybe getting that established so that you have the option to get another Kirlia in play next turn. I think in Evan's position, you're going to be fine if Cal ends up going for a Moonglow Reverse play next turn. would spread his energies pretty wide there. And that spot, we'll see what he can do. Like you mentioned, would need 9 energy cards in the discard pile. Has 1 on the active that he'll be able to retreat off. There's 1 in the hand. Shining Arcana Gardevoir could get lucky and get another one potentially. Let's see what happens.
I think by discarding this Psychic Energy, it means that there's maybe 4 now in the discard pile, so that could potentially allow Moonglow Reverse to take a knockout. Or actually, no, 3 would be fine here, because remember, that damage is still on that Gardevoir EX, so I think this is Evan's best play. Put this energy on the Zacian, put the energy on the Kirlia so it can retreat next turn, and then 1 more wherever you want. Take the knockout on Kirlia, put your opponent to 2 cards, and hope that the option isn't there for a big return knockout. Shut Psychic Embrace off the core of Calvin's deck, and hope that's enough to carry you to a 2-0 victory into a top cut berth.
Does decide to attach to that bench Draltz. Maybe this energy could have just gone onto the active Cresselia. If it goes there and the Cresselia goes down, then that's 2 energy cards in the discard pile. As it stands, though, Roxanne plus knock out that Kirlia is so strong, and Cal is left with 3 napkins in his hand, pretty much. Penny, Battle VIP Pass, and a basic Psychic Energy.
Oh, is he going to retreat this Mew and take a turn off? Wow.
Well, he does have Penny, so Penny can pick this Mew up. That's I think, why he feels okay doing this. Wants to see if he can get something here to work with.
It's
Level Ball.
Level Ball.
Can find maybe a Ralts, but definitely looking like a good play there from Evan. That Roxanne being absolutely crushing.
Does he even have a Ralts in deck? I think so many of them have been knocked out at this point. Not sure. Let's take a look in the deck, see if it can even be grabbed out. The risk to going for this, though, is you are now going to re-damage your Gardevoir, so you're going to make it a little bit easier for Evan to hit the numbers. There needs to be a Ralts in this deck for there to be a chance, and there's not. There's not a Ralts in deck for Calvin. I don't think he can confidently attack this turn with Gardevoir EX, staring down a Zacian with 4 energy already on it and no damage counters.
And there's not even a great option for him to Moonglow Reverse onto. Nothing with 60 HP. He doesn't have a basic Pokemon to put into play to Psychic Embrace 2 to get 20 more damage down. This is looking really tough. Evan, I think, has maybe found a path back into this.
Well, this is really tough, too, because Calvin's going to be turn 0 here in time. So if Calvin, is now forced into a position where he needs to take a prize card, essentially, this turn, sure, you can risk it and try and hope you can find boss's orders plus a knockout, but if you don't, then you're in a losing position. And remember, since this is game 2, if Calvin cannot win within the turns of time, Evan will win the set 1-0 and advance to top 8.
So Cal is definitely feeling the pressure to try to take a knockout here. He would only put 20 damage onto his active Gardevoir, making it a little bit easier, a little bit softer to KO.
So it would be 8 energy to knock it out,
instead of 9.
So 300 damage. So it actually doesn't matter. It actually does matter between putting 2 Psychic Embraces, because 7 energy would be 270. So,
but like you said, he has to take a knockout this turn. Being turn 0, this is his win condition.
And we're even going to see the energy put onto Cresselia. I feel like the best thing you still do in this position is you put 2 energy on this Cresselia, so at least next turn you can attack with it. The risk
if you get
now,
boss's orders.
I just don't see why Cal wouldn't put energy on this Cresselia, because it means that if your opponent knocks out this Gardevoir EX, you can Lunar Blast back the Zacian that has damage counters on it. This might have been a small miss here for Calvin.
We'll have to see if it matters. We'll have to see what ends up happening in this one, or if Evan, with so many energy cards in play, can even reach for the knockout on this active. Did make a smart decision last turn, like you mentioned, putting that extra energy card onto this Kirlia. It does have a 2 retreat cost, so it can easily be sent up and now retreated onto the bench.
So 7 energy right now, so needs to find 1 more energy card. It can be attached, it can be discarded, either or. Let's see. First Refinement finds Professor's Research. That will allow him to dig through the deck. Let's see how many energy are available.
3 energy, a Fog Crystal.
I think you just slam Research. You're guaranteed to find what you're looking for at this point. Save the Refinement. Boss is still in the deck as well. Evan may have found a path here. I believe Evan will be turn 1 in time. Let's see if we have confirmation between that. And
yep, that is confirmed.
It is. Okay.
Also even has that Forest Sealstone in hand, doesn't even have to play the Research, can just guarantee that he gets the basic energy necessary right now.
Taking the basic energy, it's now online. He's got the Psychic Energy to take this knockout onto Gardevoir. A big Storm Slash is incoming. Even just going to play the Professor's Research.
No reason not to.
As long as he doesn't deck out, like let's make sure. All right, we're good. We've got cards here. We're making sure we're avoiding our lose conditions. 7 cards does find the boss's order, so that will seal things up. But the
On the
Zacian's
next
going to have
turn.
so many energy that doesn't matter what you send up in its way, it's going to slash down anything that stands there.
Just double counting these energy cards. Look like there's just 2 in the discard pile, 1 in the hand, 2 on the active. Shining Arcana going to look at the top 2.
Does he have Pal Pad?
He must have Pal Pad if he's doing this.
Whoa.
Wait, does he have Pal Pad? I think he used Pal Pad already. Did he not?
And then I'll pass on turn 3.
Yeah, he had 0 cards left. So, but Cal, yeah, with Cal being turn 2, Evan being at 0 cards, all
What
Cal
just
has to do
happened?
is draw, pass, and Evan would lose game number 2.
He just decked himself. He had the game wrapped up, and he threw it away. Oh, it's so unfortunate to see. All he had to do was just take the knockout, not use the Shining Arcana, and that small misstep getting a
Just
little
drew
bit
a little
too
bit
greedy.
too much. He didn't need to draw it. You're right. So that is going to lead to Evan losing game number 2, which means this is a tie on the winning end. Cal's face, he cannot believe it.
What just happened?
It's a tie.
What just happened?
Cal gets to 34 match points and absolutely gets away with one there. You can see it on his face. He is fine to get to this 34 match point mark because that gives him a chance to bubble into top cut still. This does get Evan to 33 match points, should lock him up a top 16 finish, which is still solid, but man, that is very unfortunate to see.
Pardon my rude reaction there, but just what just happened in that game? I mean, Evan was so close. He had it guaranteed. I think if Calvin puts a Psychic Energy on Cresselia there, I think he's fine if he just puts 2 and makes sure.
Well, he still has
can
to top
attack.
deck, right? He would still have to top deck an energy and a boss, right?
No, I mean, the Zacian's going to attack. It's going to damage itself too much, right?
Not that much, though, because he attached for hand, right? So I don't think there was going to be enough that 110 is going to get there. And he would still have to top deck. He would still have to top deck an energy. So I don't know that there was realistically a win con there for Cal, to be honest.
That is insane. What just happened, Chip? What did we just see?
It's part of the game. You know, you got to announce your actions in the right order, and sometimes it just gets to you. You miss one little thing, and you think you have the game wrapped up, but Evan had 3 prize cards remaining, not 2 prize cards remaining. So even though that was a game-winning play, in theory, right, you getting down to just 1 prize card left, you do still have to draw a card to start your turn. Unfortunately, Evan decks out, and Cal finds a way to win game number 2, and that's a tie.
I just can't believe it.
I can tell.
I'm a little, wow. I mean, you've got to think in Evan's shoes. I feel like a lot of players, you have that mistake. I know for me, there's a mistake in my Pokemon playing career where you look back on it and you think,